eVTOL Weekly, episode 21, and we're back, guys. It's Reece. I'm one of the Hostel brothers. I'm with my three other Hostel brothers. I've got Liam. He is now an expert in not only eVTOLs, but also Rocket Lab, doing Rocket Lab daily, and now doing the Road to Glory, the poor man's Road to Glory, and smashing it. We've got Dylan. He's been here from the very start, the biggest bull in Archer, and he's just up to date with everything Archer. You should see his spreadsheet. And then last but not least is Mark. We've got a private pilot and an aerospace engineer. And yeah, we're going to be covering eVTOL today. And how are you guys getting on?
Do you know what?
We start with you, Liam.
Yeah. It's been a bit of a wild day in the market, hasn't it? We've had a little bit of tension starting to reignite between the likes of Trump and Musk. We've had a mad week when it comes to eVTOLs. We'll speak a little about Joby. We've got a bit of news on HOVR Aviation, and then we'll discuss vertical, and then we can jump into a bit of HOVR as well. But you know what? Let me jump down and we'll speak to Mark. What's been happening, Mark? How are you getting on?
It's a pullback Tuesday, it seemed like.
Are you still adding?
I added a little bit of Joby today on the pullback, and some other equities as well in healthcare, but outside of eVTOL. But I'm still bullish the industry. Just waiting for that right entry point again.
Dylan, how are we getting on, my guy?
It's been a good day. Been excited to get with you guys, talk about some eVTOLs, and like you were talking about, a little competition from Trump and Elon. Maybe to segue a little bit to something too as well. A little bit of competition brewing in the eVTOL space, coming off the beta news from the Paris Air Show, JetX partnership with Archer, and not to forget the piloted flight from Joby that we've also seen as well. So yeah, it's been an exciting week. When we see the red, if you have the capital to buy, not financial advice, and if you believe in the industry, these can be good days. And I still feel very confident in my investigations in the companies, and looking forward to talk more about them.
Thank you so much for that. Now, guys, this is eVTOL Weekly, episode 21. We are here we have actually solidified this. We're here every Tuesday, half an hour after the closing bell. Sorry we're a little bit late today, but do you know what? The chats pre-stream just get a little bit too wild. We then have the eVTOL fan club where all four of us meet up on a Sunday. That is normally, 5 p.m. Eastern time? It was 3:30 last week, but that was pushed out just because we had a interview. Now, eVTOL fan club is where you can come, you can call in, you can ask, mostly Mark, because he's an expert in the whole industry, questions about anything aerospace. Guys, that doesn't mean this is not open forum. You can still call in, you can still have a chat with us, we'll read out your comments. And before we get into the news, I want to give a big shout out to Scott Williams. Was trying to make it home. He's glad he's running behind. Thank you, my guy. You seem to be here every single day. Now, guys, what I'm going to do, I'm going to jump straight across to some of the numbers from today. We can sort of have a little discussion about it. So, we're going to start with Joby. Joby has pulled back 7% today, but it's not really surprising considering they had a 17.8% run up yesterday. Over the last week, they're up 11.1%. We will discuss exactly why. Then over the last month, we're up 25%. 6 months, we're giving it 20%. And then year to date, over the 1 year we'll do, is 101%. Going across to Archer, Dylan's favorite. We're down 8.94%. We're rising after hours by 1.5%. We're down 7.92%. Over the last 5 days, give it over the month, that is down 2%. Over the last 6 months, it's up 1%. And then over the last year, there you go. You're nearly up 200%. Vertical down 5.7%. Bit flat after hours, up 0.5%. Over the past 5 days, though, you have got that climb 15, going 19 over the month, and then over the 6 months, we are down 49%. Give love the year, that is down 11%. And then it's a fan favorite here. We're going into HOVR. HOVR's down 1.75% today, but we are climbing 0.6 after hours. Over the past 7 days, we're down 7%, and then over the last month, yeah, that's 58%. Over the last 6 months, we're still up 48%. We did get that mad rise. And then over the last year, we're up 223%. Now, guys, I've asked Mark there, but are you still adding at these levels? Is the market still a little bit frothy for you? If we look at the industry there, we're up nearly 200% on some of these stocks. Are you still adding at this price? We had a little chat at Fan Club about how far can we run before certification. Or look, are you getting quite excited in the market? Have you been buying it up, trying to complete that ever-growing position in the eVTOL industry? Dylan, I'll throw it to you first.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, for me, Liam, and again, for me, my portfolio does look to have some diversification in it as well. Some with growth stocks, some with some of the more blue chip stocks. But actually, even as more of the biggest Archer bull, it's actually been Joby that I've been taking a look at actually adding more to the portfolio as of late, and really looking to up just my personal position with inside of Joby. As I actually do, I'm always going to talk Archer because I know the most of the fundamentals behind the company. But actually now, as I've continued to complete out the spreadsheet, it's interesting to see what I have lacked to track for Joby. And with going and doing a little bit of that research, again, I feel like it's one of those horses for me not to leave behind, as the eVTOL market is kind of really continuing its momentum, getting some administration support behind it. So yeah, when the capital is there, this price for me is something that I'm still looking to add to the position. But yeah, Joby is one that I'm getting more and more curious about building that one out.
And then Reece, how are you feeling about the market at the moment?
I think it's a well-known mantra of this channel that we buy on red days. And yeah, I just think we've seen a little bit of a pullback at the moment, but it seems to be market-wide. I think we're both on the we're under $10 for both Archer and Joby at the moment, and I think they're both good positions to have. And I'd like to know with you, Liam. I know you had this was probably the end of last year. You had that $20 price target by the end of 25. How do you feel on that now? Is that still like the fact that certification's sort of been pushed out a little bit? Is that made you feel less confident on that?
I really do feel like we're going to get into the news about the Russell 3000, and I don't actually think it's a bad thing that we're out of that. It increases the actual volatility in the stock, which could lead to a massive run up if there is. Look, Archer runs up massively anyway on any sort of news. The fact that you don't have that stability now of being backed by all these hedge funds, I do think. Look, I'm not saying we will get to $20 and we'll be at valuation. We could be well overvalued, but I do believe still that we will touch that $20 by the end of the year. Look, if I'm wrong, I do reckon within the next 6 months after that, we will touch it. Do I think it's going to be valued at that? No, not really. But look, if you get Joby to get even inches away from certification, it's going to pull the whole market up. Yeah. And you know how quick Archer can run with it. They are masters at PR, we keep saying. And they'll just bring out their own news around that sort of time, and the whole industry is going to get hyped. So yeah, I do still have that $20 price target by the end of the year. People are going to say you are absolutely wild. That's what 2x from here. But no, Dylan, how are you feeling? What would your price target be?
I think I was saying for me and the Archer, it would be around the $15 end of year range. And actually, as you were just talking, Liam, it kind of made me think back to when we were making those price predictions at the beginning of the year. And just as you showed on the chart, if we go back to basically beginning of year, I think you had mentioned, and I can pull it up, Archer might be down just a little bit from beginning of year. And I believe Joby is up just a little bit from beginning of year, but we'll check that on the chart for sure. But the reason I bring that up is we still have a lot of catalysts in front of us on both fronts for Joby as well as Archer. A lot of delivery expectations to be made from both of the companies as well as ramp and manufacturing. So for me, kind of have to weigh the thought versus, again, having a lot of this news baked into the stock price as we came into the year. But I just find it hard for analysts and institutional investors to maybe have less confidence today, as now we're seeing both of the companies do piloted test flights than where they were at earlier this year. So I think that Archer is one of a retail stock. I'll call it a fan favorite for me. And you can find it really coming up in those day trading channels once it does reach these high volatility ranges. But yeah, I'm gonna go with general price prediction Joby 1250, leading a bit ahead of the race and certification, and maybe a little lower on the delivery side this year. And then I'm going to go inverse with Archer, where they might be a little bit behind lagging Joby on the certification, but may be able to have a total of, let's say, 3 deliveries out to their launch edition customers, which to me would give an opportunity for a bump in the stock price.
Like, for me, looking across at the likes of Joby now, look, we're sitting at around 981. That would actually be quite fair value for me. I don't mind adding at this sort of level. Look, guys, I said on my video yesterday I'd never buy into a pump, and I did get a little bit of kickback by saying pump. I didn't mean pump in a negative way. Mm-hmm. I just meant a quick acceleration of the likes of 17%. I'd never buy into a green day like that. Look, if I've missed the news and I'm left behind and I haven't added to my position, I ain't going adding into a 17% pump unless there's something insane that's happening where I don't think it's going to pull back at all. Look, we did get a little bit of a pullback there. Wouldn't surprise me if we go around to around $9. But look, I do think Joby is just going to keep starting to push forward, and I do like that comment that Scott put. Might be the last time we see $8 for Joby. It all depends if something kicks off macro across the whole market. If something kicks off, like we've had that today with the likes of Elon and Trump again.
This is the past
5 days. Yeah, go on.
This might be something that has come out and I just haven't seen it. Do we know what that big, the big bill, the big beautiful bill or something that Trump has released? Do we know that's going to be made up of? Is that just like tax relief and stuff like that? Or will that be funding for the new technologies? Will that be that the FAA training for eVTOLs? Like, is that going to be that sort of investment? I think that's something that would be quite interesting, because obviously with these technologies, we preferably would like maybe some subsidies. I know there was a dig at Elon and the EV mandate, but does that mean that money's been made available for a new technology such as an eVTOL? Or I don't know. I think that is something I'm going to have a look at after this video. But I think that could be quite big for this eVTOL space.
Well, and to that point, like you're mentioning, Reece, it does refer to a set of legislative efforts which are aimed at supporting and accelerating the integration and of advanced air mobility technology. So that is to include the eVTOLs. And again, being that's an executive order, we're looking at a timetable to get this pushed across the desk to be able to get signed. But with that, and As we always want to bring the factual information, I do believe that there was some writing in there too about the ATC, the air traffic control system changes, which again, we, have learned that there's a bit of partnership and possibilities of the Palantir and Archer playing into maybe developing a new air traffic control system as well. And I'll pause because there was one other thought I had, but I'll let you guys take it from there.
And that's going to tie into where Palantir is going to really excel the likes of Archer Aviation. We've said it before about, look, there are the advantages of being vertically integrated like Joby, but like when you bring a partner like Palantir on, anything air traffic control, logistics, planning, Palantir is going to excel no matter how good Joby's AI team are. I very much doubt they're anything to the scale of Palantir. Then I want to jump across, guys. So I did do a video on this, but I think it'll only be right to show it anyway. So what caused the big injection in price was Joby had a test flight in Dubai. Quality is a little bit bad when I open it up to big screen here, but we should be able to see it. How did you feel about this, Dylan? I know you're massive into Archer. Is this good for the whole industry? Has this hurt Archer in any way? Has it benefited Archer in any way?
Yeah, so actually, honestly, the way I was thinking about this is I find Archer to be a laggard behind Joby, whether it's certification, time in the industry, in both those respects. So for me, knowing that Archer is doing piloted flights here in the US, doing piloted test flights here in the US and tracking that data, which can be found online as well. So it's not like it's a secret database in which they're hiding that in. To me, it shows again, Joby is probably the leading horse when it comes to certification. And I'm curious to see who will be the first to truly deliver to the UAE or Dubai area. But for me, what this shows to me is a possible potential of what Archer could show off in the next, just for me, ballpark 1 to 3 months coming up. So proud of Joby for getting their aircraft out there. And I believe there was a lot of hot weather tests that went into being able to have the S4 fly in those conditions as well. So yeah, proud, happy for Joby, happy for all the Joby investors. Makes me grow more confidence with inside of Joby, the industry, and looking forward to seeing Archer come out with some real-time footage when they do their deliveries as well.
And that was one thing that did kind of surprise me. We didn't really get much of a response from Archer. Normally when Joby puts something out, Archer puts something out like straight away. And I'll show it once this video ends. But all that ended up coming out then was being dropped from the Russell 3000. And then, Reece, I want to sort of ask you, after watching that video there, does that make you even more bullish on the likes of Joby, or is it just another tick the box exercise? We knew it was going to happen, and it does excite you in the industry, but there's no real progress. What are you thinking?
The one thing that I have like a question about Joby over in Dubai would be, are they going to be running the service themselves, or are they going to do sort of like Archer's program is, like you're just going to sell the vehicle or sell the eVTOL and let them sort of do the infrastructure and run it themselves? Because if they are doing that, I quite like that. That's going to be generating revenue, but it goes completely against their integrated approach. And the problem would be, it's only like step one, because then they'll have to figure out all the infrastructure and stuff like that. Like their time horizon is still quite long, even if they do get it over there and they're happy to like purchase them eVTOLs. So like I'd love in the next earnings call if they could just really make it clear, or just inform us what is the plan over there. Because I thought previously it was going to be the fact that they were going to run it all themselves, sort of in a different approach.
Like Skyport's infrastructure, I'm reading here, is currently building the first commercial vertiport at Dubai International Airport, and it's on track for Q1 2026. Now, I don't know, are one of their partners going to be operating them? Dylan, are you aware if the partner's going to be operating them, or are they just going to go ahead first and operate the service?
To my knowledge, it's going to be a sale of aircraft as opposed to full operation. Now we do know that the partnership with JetX was recently announced as well. So I'm with you, Reece, where I want to say 1 to 2 months ago, we were kind of looking into Joby and then building out the vertiports themselves over in that area. So interesting to see. And again, even back then, we were kind of talking, once this infrastructure is built out, is this something that's going to be able to be shared across companies, or is this going to be isolated to whoever builds out this infrastructure, really them holding not the IP, but really holding the rights to take off and land at these specific locations. And, I think maybe selfishly for me a year ago, you would see Joe Ben and Adam G on conference stages together. It seemed kind of like they were in this together. And, if one succeeds, if the other succeeds, and it's not necessarily a competition, but we both want to win. So maybe as we move further in the year, I wouldn't mind seeing Adam and Joe Ben get back together on stage and see how that relationship's looking, and get them to talk about the potential of both of their companies moving into the Middle East and in those regions.
Yeah, and I always find when Joe Ben does talk at the likes of them conferences, I actually can listen to him. He is quite a good speaker on stage. You do still get the ums and ahs, but he is quite a good speaker on stage. And then it does sort of like make me think, what's different on the earnings call? Or is it just you're under pressure, having questions asked from all different and left, right, and center? Speaking about the earnings call coming up, we do have goals set on the channel-wise. But what I would find to be quite interesting is if that whole week we make it a big event about Joby, ACHR, vertical, horizon, and where we look, one day we might go and look at the financials, one day we might go and look at the fundamentals behind business, one day we might go and actually break down their team, their engineers. I think it'd be quite exciting of a build up, and then we can, like, the day before, we can sort of have our projections, have our thoughts, discuss what we're about to see. I think it'd be quite a good project to do. I think it'll get us hyped. We can have a few guests call on, see where they think it's going. I just think it'd be quite nice. So yeah, guys.
Do you know what that would be a little bit like? It's a bit like the boxing, and like they do all of the like interviews pre-match, and like, how are you gonna do?
Well, Reece,
we'll do the weigh-in.
Yeah. Was it the round table where they all sit around the table?
Well, speaking of the round table and possible boxing match, and again, I was looking at the dates because I thought they were on different dates. So we will definitely correct this as a team if I'm incorrect. But right now, it's looking to show that August 6th is actually going to be the Q2 earnings call for both companies. So I thought they were going to be on different days as they typically are. So
I thought I seen the last day on something that one is August 7th.
Correct. Correct. Yeah. So this was just a quick overview right now. So we'll definitely correct it. But if it happens to be a double earnings call in one day, that would be quite the experience for the eVTOL community, as each of the CEOs get to go and speak their piece on their company with either in the same day or, as they typically do, within that same 24-hour period. It would be fun.
If they do happen on the same day at the exact same time, you're going to get a split between us. So like 2 of us will have to cover ACHR and 2 of us will have to cover Joby. And then there will be a little bit of competition between the Hustle brothers, who has more fans, Joby or ACHR. But no, I'm quite excited about that whole journey. We do seem to have a lot of fun around there. But I do want to jump in then. So ACHR Daily did put out, guys, if you haven't, make sure to follow ACHR Daily on X. Not gonna lie, lots of my information I get from ACHR for the lives comes from Archer Daily. So a big shout out, and he's a big supporter of the channel. So I think your name's Remy, innit? See, I do know. Yeah, so they've been dropped from the Russell 3000. What's your initial thoughts on that, Dylan? Positive, negative?
I mean, initially, as a retail investor that's getting news and always wanting positive news around the company I'm invested in, I'm not necessarily going to feel good that a company was dropped from an index fund, whether it be the 3,000, 2,500. For me, I would rather have the momentum of Archer being something that could follow a rocket lab and find its way into the Russell 1000. In the long-term vision of this, it's going to be really fun to cover these companies and see that precipice, I can't say that word, but them being on the precipice that you guys can feel in the rest of it, being on the edge of getting into something like the S&P 500. So I know that is years and years down the line, FAA cert, a lot of consumer adoption with inside of the air taxi network. So you might be looking at the 2030, and that might be a early time to say that something like that could happen. But minor step back. But again, sometimes I have to look at the stock price and see what the fluctuation has happened based on the news, and whether it's tariffs, macro, something to me, it seems like the eVTOL, the Joby's, Archer stocks, they're not invincible to them, but the amount of percentages lost in a day on a general speculative stock, it still holds my confidence because, again, I'm not having a drawdown to having Archer sit at 6, to have Joby sit at 4 again. So don't love to hear that Archer isn't making a step forward and there's something of a step backwards, no matter where it is in the company. But I'd like to see what Archer wants to do about that and how they can respond. So that would be interesting to see from me.
Thank you so much for that, Dylan. And then my initial thoughts on that is, look, when you're included in some of these index funds, there is increased liquidity. There is increased exposure to the likes of your hedge funds. Look, initially, I looked at it and I thought that is quite negative. We need to, you know what? We need to look at it in a realistic approach. We need to look at it in a optimistic approach. Yes, there's there's decreased liquidity when something like this happens. However, you don't have that backbone of a floor and a ceiling as much as when you're included in some of these funds. And therefore, that's where my sort of thesis of you could get an increased run up. Now, on the flip side, you could get an increased downfall pretty quickly when you don't have the backbone like that. Overall, look, it's disappointing, but is it going to make me sell out of Archer? Not a chance. Yeah, there's not really much I have to say on it. It was the same as on Rocket that week, but there wasn't really much I had to say about the Russell 1000.
That a possible influence, sorry, Liam, but I just want to mention a possible influence was the $850 million equity dilution, which may have brought them into that consideration as they rebalanced the Russell 3000.
Yeah.
But to Archer's credit, again, they put 85 million shares on the market, and they are just below, today, they're just below what they were actually offered at. So to me, strength and resiliency for Archer and the shareholders, and anybody that's continuing to deploy capital into Archer, we can see it's definitely holding a consolidating range of 9 to 10, easy consolidating range for the past few months there.
And the thing is, they now have $2 billion in the cash reserves. So then it's, I'm kind of looking at it. It hasn't really affected the stock price. You now have 85 million shares diluted into the stock. You have a $2 billion in cash. are we going to actually see a step up and break through that $13 when good news does come about? It really does make me think that. Reece, have you any real concerns, any thoughts about this Russell 3000 drop?
No, it's sort of similar to what we always say, where you invest in a stock because you believe in it. So news like this isn't really going to change my thesis. So I still believe that eVTOLs are going to be the future, and whether they're in the Russell 3000 or not, it's not really going to change that thesis. And I think if my thesis was based on that, then I didn't really believe in anyway. So I really shouldn't have been in for that. But I do agree. I think now the fact that we could get to a stage where piloted flights are coming out, we could see the first, obviously, electric vertical takeoff, and more news like that, I think really is going to start rallying us towards the end of the year. I do see, if it doesn't hit 20, I could see Dylan's target of 15 being hit. But I'd like to be consolidating around these figures. I don't want to be going up to 15 and then back down to 10, because I don't want to become one of those stocks that's just yo-yoing up and down. And I think I'd like to see a lot more development on their certification process. I think that's the next big step for them. And until we get real development on the type certification, we're not going to see a held higher figure of $20 or whatever like that. That's what we're going to have to do in the long run. But yeah, to summarize, so I'm not going on for too long. Yeah, for me, it was a bit of a gut punch. I'm going to call a spade, and it wasn't the news I wanted to hear, but it's not going to change my overall look on Archer, and that's what it's going to be like going forward.
I really like the point Reece said there. Look, none of us invested in this, and we're too concerned about them being in the Russell 3000. Our goal is to be in the S&P 500. Yes, we're a long way off that now, but you're not investing in a stock to be in the Russell 3000. So I wouldn't let yourself get down in the dumps about it. Now, look, to be part of the likes of an S&P 500, you need to be profitable, and we're a long way off that. Do you know what I'm going to do, guys? I'm going to jump straight back to the comments, just because they're starting to really build up now. So Scott is not currently adding. I think this is Joby watching to add Joby under $9. Do you know what? Solid. Didn't you say it could be the last time you'll reach 8? You're sort of leaving yourself a really narrow margin there, but I like it. Zed Stacker, the big HOVR investor, mate. You bought another 5K of HOVR. No, it's up to you whether you want to share it with me, but you must have a significant amount of HOVR right now. What are we looking at? 168.
Yeah.
And Brandon and New Horizon Aircraft did have that dilution that had come out, I believe, on the 27th. I had texted Mark some details on it. And really quickly, it was I won't hold you guys up, but once I get the info, I got the SEC filing form. So again, as I'll get you the facts on how many shares were put back into the market. But again, HOVR. Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Here it is. Okay, so they offered 3,340,714 of common stock shares, and they were able to bring in $5.1 million, and that was secured. So you would expect to have New Horizon have just over $5 million of capital now with that dilution from the 27th.
And then the market cap is now currently sitting at 52.72 million. I'm still a little bit nervous of HOVR to add at this kind of level. Again, when we see an increased run up over a past month, I do be very careful jumping in. Are you adding to HOVR at the moment?
I'd like to see some more of their financials, if I'm being honest, at this moment in time. They're still in their infancy. They've got, as Mark was saying before, a very long runway to go. But for me at the moment, I just want to find out where are they getting the financial backing before I can go full in. But in terms of Z-Stacker, I think we need to try and get Z-Stacker one of those hover hats that Brandon had.
Oh, Z-Stacker. Do you know
I
what?
want those hats.
If we get one, Z-Stacker, you're here every single week. We will send you a hover hat.
100%.
No, I'm not guaranteeing we can get it because Brandon did say they were in the process of trying to get merch, and I'm sure that is the last thing he needs to be thinking about is merch. When the company was struggling for compliance with NASDAQ. So now that they've got compliance, hopefully they've been able to focus on a little bit more on the merch. And yeah, we'll be rocking the hover merch.
Well, and as you say that, Liam, I swear to you, I think it was no, it was last night. It was like one of those shower thoughts, and I was thinking, I was like, you know, where's Archer's merch? And I'm only saying that because me as the Archer Bull, I'm like, man, if I had the long sleeve tee with a little Archer logo right here, you know, a little hooded sweatshirt with an Archer logo, I'd wear that around. So if anybody from Archer's listening, if you want to send some merch over, you know, you can find me, I'm sure. So
you could rock it on all the weeklies then. You can have it.
Exactly. But also too, I think something that's interesting in this market, as we know that valuations are high, market's a bit frothy right now. So you have to take that into consideration. And then there's also the element of buying into strength. So, you know, you can have some companies over the past year, again, high valuations like Palantir, companies like Robinhood, so Hood to stock. Both of those have ran incredibly. And if you listen to Wall Street analysts, you'd stop buying at $10, $12, and $15, you know, probably on all of those companies. So it's not until you really look under the hood, look at the fundamentals, and really see the projection of the story and what product those companies have and have to offer to the consumers can maybe help you make that decision for your own, whether it's time to put that hold rating for yourself on the portfolio, or if you're noticing a time where that consolidation, you know, is building up again for buying into strength. But again, it's tough with the way the market is, and seems like a lot of speculative companies are staying green. So, you know, again, we stay ahead of the news, so that way we know what's going on in the eVTOL industries.
Sorry, Dylan, I wasn't laughing at you, and I think Reece seen the same thing I seen. Did you?
No, I was thinking about Robin Hood. Me and Liam used to have a position in that, like a sizable position, and then I just seen it literally before we came on, and I was
ridiculous,
sick.
right?
I spoke about that
we were in
night
it like,
on the live stream.
Was it like $7 we were in?
My average when I sold it was $8.65, and my average when I sold it was $8.65. I sold it at $11, and I was like, yeah, solid bit of business there. But no, I could get sick now.
Agreeable story. Probably bought the first share at about $8, and I literally bought it just because I'm using the Hood app to buy, and I'm like, well, I might as well buy a share of Hood, because if this company starts crashing down to $1 a share, I need to get my money off this Hood app. So I'm like, it's a good way I can watch my money kind of. But that to me is just one of those stocks I'm always on the wrong side of. I buy when I should sell. I sell when I should buy. You know, just one that just doesn't click for me. I don't know if anybody else in the chat or the community just has some of those stocks that just kind of fall in line with your timing of buys, and you're just kind of on it. And some other ones, where it's like you have that, you know it, but when you hit buy, it always goes down 10% the next day. You feel horrible, you sell out, and then next week it's up to 35, and then you're just like, I've missed the run, I don't want to get in. And like Reece says there, you wake up and Hood's pushing near 100. So, you know, hindsight 50-50.
So what I was laughing at is this comment. Not going to read it out, but yeah. Then spike instead of pump. What does the purple crown number 3 mean? I am so confused, mate. Joby is hands down ahead. Yeah, I think we all agree Joby is ahead at the moment. Watched a video on Dubai News TV somewhere, and in the interview, the Prince guy said you would use an app to request it. Now, I do not know if that's a UAE app or a Joby Uber app.
May I pop in really quick on that,
Yep.
Liam? You know, something that I think we don't discuss enough of, and meaning us and maybe the eVTOL community as a whole, um, is Nikhil, who works for Archer. Let me just pull his true title. I think it's it's either CTO or, sorry about that, I should know this. Yeah, Nikhil, the CCO. So you have you have Joby, who, correct me if I'm wrong, has a partnership with Uber to be a part of Uber Elevate and kind of get that off the ground and be integrated with them. Well, who kind of created Uber Elevate? That was Nikhil G, who is now with Archer. So I just think it's an interesting forward-looking to who Joby's connecting with now. And again, like you kind of speaking with the ranking on the teams, like if you do, you know, once we get that opportunity to compare CEO, CTO, CFOs next to each other, be interesting to see. And also, I just want to add in, I had put a post up on X yesterday, had seen that Eric Lintel, the general counsel of Archer, had sold, he actually had $1 million day. So I honestly congratulate him. He sold about a little over 95,000 shares yesterday. So he had about $1 million to his pocket based on his shares. He typically sells when we have these run-ups, typically around $11. Tosha Perkins usually is one to sell as well. But the one person that has not sold, I have yet to see Nikhil sell any shares. And I believe the last time that Adam sold,
Oh,
and
you
I'm looking at my,
messaged me that, yeah.
yeah, and I'm looking at it right now because I want to just give the factual information. But Adam G had to let go of some shares back in November, and I think it was right before the earnings call, if I'm not incorrect. And he was basically kind of publicly upset that he was having to get rid of those shares. He says it was for tax reasons and such, if I'm remembering correctly. But yeah, you know, it's kind of one of those things where if the CEO and such is not selling, to me, I'm taking that as they're finding their company to be undervalued. So I'll keep checking the filings and keep everybody updated. But as of yesterday, Eric Lintel was the $1 million Archer maker.
And I really like that checking up whether the CEO sells or not, because if it is a scam stock, like I believe Bag believes it is, but I don't know where the scam is if he's not selling out. Like you'd have to sell out at the height. If not, how's your scam gonna work? Are you gonna go down with your own ship? Like I really don't know. I do believe they honestly believe that this project works. I believe it's gonna work. I think all our team here believes it's gonna work. But yeah, then we have, I believe this is Mark.
Yeah.
Sorry, I had to drop off. I'm following and will comment if specific questions are asked. So if you have any specific questions about the eVTOL industry, please, guys, we have our pilot and aerospace engineer in the comments. And I can see you have answered the question there, Mark, so I'll bring the question up. Bagholm says, do you think Job will confirm it's still on track to have type conforming craft this year and start testing, or say within 12 months again, 6 months after they said it first time? And then you say, how can they get certification this year? Joe Ben said the conforming aircraft and testing might start this year. And Market says, when any of these companies announce they've begun TIA flight testing, then they're within 9 months to a year from type certification. And he will be doing a video on the type certification process soon. And guys, you're going to want to check that out because he will do it 20 times better than the likes of me, Reece, or Dylan will. And that's no shame on three of us. If we want to go and be Mark's apprentice for the next 20 years, then we might have the same sort of knowledge he has.
That's right.
Then we have Bag. There's a Forbes article about Archer. Dylan, can you jump in?
I actually read that earlier today. If I'm just gonna do one of the kind of was it too long? Didn't read TLDRs. Basically, was just highlighting. Took some quotes from Adam. Basically, kind of backed the thought that the eVTOL space is a growing industry. And I believe in the Forbes article, I believe they also touched on the Archer defense side, being as a key catalyst for Archer as well. So it was I'll say it's nice to see him in there. What I'm also I've been curious to see if maybe we'll get that day, and I'll put Joe Ben in it as well, where we get Joe Ben and Adam on those Forbes top 50 CEO lists of the year, and get to see that momentum going as well. So I don't want to say it was like a Forbes hit piece, but pretty much information that we provide here, keep you updated on. But again, I'm not going to have anything wrong with Forbes wanting to write an article and bringing Adam in to get some quotes as well. So yeah, definitely read, and I can always write a little post on X as well, and share the article, and then also give some thoughts on it as well. But yeah, happy to see him do that article.
Guys, again, make sure to follow Dylan on X. His name is @DylanIsDylan11. Dylan has been pushing out a load of good eVTOL content. I do find it hard sometimes to run the space and the eVTOL side, so it's really nice to have Dylan on side, and he tags us in it. So guys, make sure to check out DylanIsDylan11 on X. I think we've lost Dylan there, but we'll keep going.
Soldier on.
Scott says, I think Joby will make certification this year. In my opinion, 6 months to go. Hands down, really risky. Do you know, Zed Stacker, you have more yo-yos than I have being that heavy in HOVR right now. But
sometimes
if it works out, it's worked out before for you. You were right last time, so I'm really hoping for you. I've brought that one up. And then I pulled back my rare earths, may re-enter, but I'm happy with my gains and not left with the bag. I'll have more money for dip buying in the industries I care more about. And Vast, what was your biggest position? Was it Archer or was it HOVR? You're going to tell me Joby now. I think it was between Archer and HOVR. Please let me know, brother. They get paid large salaries also. Yeah, but if they sell out their shit, I'm telling you, if they were in a scam, why would they just like leave and keep buying shares up? Like, nah, I don't swallow that. And then
for a lot of the C-suites, they may get a salary, but you're going to have the highest compensation for these guys coming off stock equity. So that, it's kind of a big thing that brings them into the company as well. So whether it's for personal fun, entertainment, gains, or to keep their lifestyle up, they're working hard for the company, and that's their right to take the gains just as it is for ours. So unfortunately, if I was to sell, you wouldn't see it on the SEC database because I don't have the kind of shares that Kathy Wood has. But yeah, for me, these guys are working really hard. So you got somebody like Eric taking profits, and I'm okay with that.
And like looking at it, bag, come back to me and say, would you rather get $9 million a year compensation, or would you rather get $4.5 million a year salary and 500,000 shares in Archer Aviation? It's the same value. The only thing that can happen, the shares can go up or down. Tell me, which one would you prefer? Would you prefer to compensate? If it's a scam stock, would you just take the 9 million and go? That'll be very interesting to hear your answer on that. What would you take, Reece?
Oh, I'm definitely taking the 500,000 Archer shares, 100%. Because by the time that this takes off, it'll be worth, I don't know. We could be talking 5, 6, 7. Like, I don't know. I don't want to get carried away. I'm gonna outdo the $20 at this rate.
Then you'll fall into your name, Big Reece. Like, gee.
yeah. But now 100%, I can see why they do it. But also you have to believe, like once you've got the equity in, you have to work hard to make sure it's worth more than the day you got it. So like for me, the fact they're not selling is obviously a good sign. You don't want them to be, it'd be very worrying if they're all taking $1 million hits out each month. Then you'd start going, do you know what, maybe Bag's onto something. But yeah.
Dylan, how do you feel about that? Do you think Bag would rather take the shares or would he rather take the salary?
You know, if you asked me as a 20-year-old, I would have probably took the bird in the hand. But as somebody a little bit older and hopefully wiser now, give me a little bit less up front and give me the shares in the company. Because also at that point, I'm so entrenched into the company. I mean, if I think I know a lot about the DD I do in the company, I mean, Eric Lintel is the general counsel. I mean, he's literally the legal guy for Archer. So unless Adam's pulling something over his head too, my basic point is they know the ins and outs of this company. And again, if you track actually what Tosha and Eric do with their shares, it's nothing uncommon to any of the stock sales that they make from the restricted stock vesting that they get. And really, it's Eric and Tosha. They're really the big ones. Priya will show up every once in a while. And even Tom, he'll take a few, maybe twice a year or so. But again, I think like Reece said, I mean, take somebody like Tom. I mean, that guy, I can't imagine the amount of hours he's spending per day putting it on the engineer front. So, you know, if you're working hard and you're in an upcoming industry, I guess that's, you know, where you are rewarded for those for that labor and the hard efforts. So, yeah.
And then I want to bring up another article here. Now, it's by our good, oh here we go, Big Reece again. So, it's by our good old friend Jim Cramer again. He said he's going with the whole Archer and Joby thing because a little bit of news can bring them up 25%. Do we follow?
Just to clarify, this is the American Jim Cramer. It's the American Jim Cramer we're talking about. Just to clarify, first one.
AJC, American Jim Cramer.
Yeah.
I wonder what the British Jim Cramer is at the moment, but I don't know. I don't be looking.
Right.
Do we go with our hypothesis of do the opposite of what Jim Cramer does do? Is it nice to get recognition from the likes of Jim Cramer, or are you actually bothered?
No, I'll be honest. I'm actually, this is worse than the Russell 3000. I don't want that guy commenting on my stocks. I've seen everything he's ever said. I've seen go the polar opposite.
There is the inverse Jim Cramer fund or something like that, which does seem to be profitable. I shared it on X. Adam on CNBC. I think that was today. I'm gonna pull it up again. But what I found most interesting about his interview on CNBC, I feel like if you even go back, there's a content creator that I've watched for about a year and a half who covers a few different tickers. He actually got to have a sit-down interview with Adam. I was really excited when he got to have the interview. And unfortunately, once the interview happened, it was kind of the same rhetoric from Adam. You know, we're looking to build an air taxi network and get you from Newark to, sorry, I'm forgetting the other hub, in a shorter time route. And it just, you know, it kind of seemed like he was telling the same story again. When he was on the CNBC hit with Ms. Kelly, and I'll pull that up eventually, but it seemed like he was actually a bit more open to talking about Archer Defense. He didn't go into specifics on, you know, anything with the Andrew deal and such, but for me, it just seemed like a growth in the way he's speaking about his company. And it's not just going on again like he was a year ago to say, hey, we are Archer Aviation, you know, get to know us. We're an air taxi network, and we're trying to do this. This one just seemed like a bit more confident Adam and was telling the story that was, and not so much of a story to be coming up in that. So I like to see him on that. So So like you're saying, and really my only point in that was, is Kramer covering, if we kind of get Adam inversely, get him with the Bloomberg, CNBCs, MSNBC channels and such like that, it's always going to give us a good look into what he's thinking about his company as he's talking to those larger institutional, those larger finance viewership bases, basically something in that realm. Yeah.
I guess the only thing that I've maybe asked then of you, Dylan, would you like us to be maybe further forward in the certification process before he starts talking to these, and like you get new eyes on it, and people might delve into it and be like, oh, that's going to be in a few years. And some people are like looking for short-term investments, especially retail. Would we want to be further forward maybe in the certification process before them interviews?
This might be a little off-putting, but I'm kind of not that, I don't want to say I'm not that concerned over the FAA, but that's if for, I guess we just speak honestly, if for me, the only reason I was invested in the Archer was for FAA approval, I don't think this year would be the year to have my capital in Archer. What I feel like I've been hearing just through tone of voice at Adam, or what kind of contracts and partnerships have been put into place. I think I mentioned it before. To me, it almost feels like Adam is ready to deploy a product, and he is either going to fight with the FAA to get them to cert this, and it seems like through the administration and as well as Duffy bringing Adam on stage at the Paris Air Show to talk about the bat signal going up, it just seems to me like Adam's going to get these aircraft manufactured, and he's ready to sell them to who wants them. And if that's going to be the GCAA, then unless, again, Archer's a U.S. company, so unless the administration comes in and puts a roadblock in that, which is future macro stuff, which I can't predict, I foresee Archer being GCAA deliveries and looking to see what we get going with some deliveries to Anduril as well. So for me, like, kind of, when I first invested into Archer, it was about a commercial business. What kind of actually has kept me around Archer has been the defense side, and kind of knowing that DoD is not going to have to fall under the same constraints under the FAA certification policies to have the aircraft from Archer delivered to their counterparts in the DoD that are looking to accept these. And again, that's going to be up to FAA and administration to decide whether they want GCAA to have these in hands first, or if they can either through the bill that I believe just got passed, and we'll maybe get some executive order announcement maybe within the next week, if not a few days. I personally think that has something to do a lot with the ramp in what I believe the administration is trying to push the FAA to. And I mean, you have Chris Rocheleau coming out speaking at the Paris Air Show. So I think I put a little bit too much into that answer, but I'm anxiously awaiting FAA cert, but kind of calmly awaiting FAA cert. Because with the Archer, again, as you guys do, as we do, following them day by day, week by week, and as I'm sure we're going to cover the earnings call as well, we're going to get to see, again, what guidance has been put out for that quarter. And if I go back to Archer's last call, we were promised a piloted flight and deliveries to UAE. They classified it as midsummer, maybe closer towards September. So we did get the piloted flight. I was looking back because if you just go by what he said, he did not, to my knowledge, say we were going to get a VTOL flight. He said we were going to get a piloted flight. And I think it's kind of being digested by me and maybe in the community as well. And obviously, Chat can correct me on this if they feel like I'm wrong, where the VTOL, the CTOL routes that have been run by Archer may also play into some different use cases for the aircraft, as well as gaining extra flight data and testing on the aircraft. So yeah, I think I put a lot into that answer, but yeah, I'm here for the ride, and I think it's red days like this that remind me why I'm in the stock, and it's not for today and tomorrow. It's for a 5, 10, and 15-year vision that
100%.
I'm believing in. And again, I'm going to talk the most about Adam and Archer, but I believe there's going to be multiple players in this space. And I think even at this Paris Air Show, you saw the ramp from Beta, Eve,
Eve
with
is interesting.
you know, and Beta showing off the cargo space that they had. I would say what worries me more is that we have more players coming into the game. So more players, less market space. So it's again one of those things to balance out. And of course we want, as investors, whether it's Joby or Archer, we want to be the first movers in the industry, you know, and really plant that flag. So you know, it's an interesting inflection time in the eVTOL industry moving forward.
That's quite an interesting point you brought up. Is there a way you could be swayed away from Archer if one of their competitors got through with type certification and looks more promising, or do you think that you're Archer through and through now at this point?
The reason I'm for today, for this stream that gets recorded, and it can always change, but for today, the reason I'm going to lock in that I'm locked in is because everything in guidance has gone as is, and I can on a timeline factually believe that Joby has been in this game since about 2009, and Archer entering the game in about 2021. I would expect them to be lagging behind Joby. I'm just going to throw random percentage. If Archer was at 86% and Joby was at 34%, I think as a Joby investor, I'd be like, why has Archer only been doing this for 3 years and so much further ahead in the FAA cert? And I wonder too, you know, it's one of those one wins, all wins, you know, once individual cert pieces get hit, you know, or the other company is able to kind of coattail off of that and either play into the flight data or just any small redesigns to their aircraft that might have to be done. Because again, we don't want a full rebuild of Midnight, or full rebuild of S4 to have to get past FAA certification. But you know, let one succeed in one area, and you know, let's let these other companies kind of keep building off of that. So yeah, I expect Archer to be a bit behind, but it will be interesting on this earnings call to hear the further progression, and especially if this bill gets passed, because they'll have a little bit of time prior to the earnings call to see how much of an impact that push for the 120 days with inside the bill has mentioned.
Thank you so much for that, Dylan. And then, Reece, did you want to jump in on another question?
No, that was an interesting comment I think you brought up there from Mark. Is that in regards to DoD?
Mark says, to Dylan's DoD comment, when a DoD contract happens, the company gets paid in tranches, starting with contract award to milestones met to aircraft delivery. That said, any eVTOL aircraft company that gets a DoD contract will immediately start to approach profitability on their balance sheet. And then Zed Stacker says, see, my biggest bull case for HOVR is military.
It's so funny. When we started this, I remember when we were talking about this, and we could only see really like the taxi network. And now we're sitting here, and I could see it more 50-50, really. If not, the military might actually have the better use case, and because they're going to get that first mover advantage, and they don't have to wait for the certification, and then we don't need to like roll everything out. They sort of are a law to themselves, aren't they? And especially in the early stages, I could see them being the bigger part, and then maybe in, let's say, 10 years, I could see it start balancing out and becoming more commercial. What about you guys? What's your outlook for the eVTOL space based on the DoD contracts?
Well, like you were saying there, Reece, you know, I know commercial adoption, you know, we're going to typically take that to a person like me or anybody like yourselves, you know, adopting into this new air taxi route and how we're comfortable flying from point to point. But again, with the DoD continuing to work with Archer, work with Joby, again, maybe I'll call it maybe not commercial adoption, but like defense adoption into the companies. And I'm sure there's been some prototypes that have been brought into the DoD that have not worked out. But at this point right now, I feel like that there is a high interest in both the hybrid versions and possibly the hydrogen version of the S4. for those, like you say, Reece, those continued use cases in longer range flights. And I'm going to get back to you guys again. That was one thing I heard earlier on low flight missions, but I'm going to get back to you guys. So that'll be a cliffhanger on that one.
And talking about flights, Dylan makes sure to track all of Archer's flights. You post it on X, don't you, brother?
I do. Now, granted, just for everybody's eyes, and for the tech genius I am recording it off my phone and I am uploading it like a video. So bear with maybe my kid in the background talking for a second or two during the video, and just video quality. But yes. I've tracked all the flights, and I've actually noticed something interesting with inside of flight patterns. And obviously, Mark can speak to this, or anybody in the chat, if they've seen this or found this to be interesting. Was going back, the first flight looked like the altitude got up to about 1,500 feet at about 125 miles per hour. Now, if you actually do go and look at the picture of the flight data, you see it's very two small circles in which they ran. Flight number 2 was 13 minutes. They bumped up to about 130 miles per hour. That one was still at about 950 feet. Now no, I'm sorry. Let me back that up. I'm sorry. That was your second one, 950. You're having your two small circles on that. Your third flight, 13 minutes. That one reached about 135. So your speed's ramping about 5 miles per hour each test flight. That was at a top cruise altitude of estimated approximate 1,700 feet. That was 24 miles, same as the previous flight. Now this one, the circle got a little bit further out as they were traveling. Then what I found was interesting on the June 17th and June 18th piloted test flights. June 17th, they flew out of SNS, the Salinas Municipal Airport, and they flew for 15 total minutes. We're reaching a max speed of around, I didn't want to put 140, so I put 139 on the spreadsheet, with the top height of altitude being 2,100 feet. Something interesting on this was the first time that they did I'm calling them a circle, so forgive my aviation language, but it was a one circle pass from where it had taken off and then landed, following it with the 618, which was a 13-minute flight going about 140 miles per hour. Again, this was at 2,000 feet, and both of those two previous flights were 25 miles. And if you look on the flight radar, you can see that they are stretching out the distance from the municipal airport that they are taking the aircraft. So to me, as a non-aviation specialist, but somebody who is looking at the data, what I would think that would mean is confidence in the aircraft, because if you're taking that further away from the airport, you're thinking that thing's going to come on back to the airport and land safely. So continue to follow, and I always do try to tag Hustle Brothers YouTube page onto there as well on X, so you guys can absolutely check out Hustle Brothers YouTube page for any of the posting on the flight data as well.
Guys, this is why we've brought Dylan on. Absolute specialist when it comes to Archer Aviation. We will have Mark back for the eVTOL fan club podcast we do on Sundays. Guys, we do 2 live shows a week. As the channel grows, we will be able to do more and more live shows. We're going to get Dylan and Mark to be able to do videos on the channel. These two guys seem to be fan favorite, Reece. I think we're going to be without a job very, very soon, brother.
Never. No, you guys are the OGs, the ones that planted the flag in the eVTOL space. So again, just on a random note, I want to give a big thanks to these two guys up here. If it wasn't for them, I wouldn't have found any eVTOL content. I wouldn't have found an eVTOL community. It's great to get on here and share my thoughts with you guys. So that after 2 or 3 sentences to my wife, she's kind of like, I'm done hearing about Archer for the day. And I'm like, I got so much more to tell you though. So, you guys really planted your flag in starting the content around the eVTOLs. And, you guys have really to me, I think you've been fair to all companies. You've been fair to your community and listening to them and what type of content they want you guys to put out, and you guys absolutely do that. Bringing Brandon on, covering HOVR the way you guys do is awesome. And also, it's you guys aren't play favorites towards Joby the Archer. It's like whoever has that news to put out. Reece, that's what you're making videos on. Liam, that's what you're making videos on. And it's always trusted content, that I can come back to. And I'm not saying that because I'm here. That's me saying it as a true fan of these guys up here and the really working effort. Because I knew I had the time to research Archer, but I knew I did not have the time to create content around Archer. So if it wasn't for these two guys right here, I don't know if we'd have a community to talk eVTOLs. So really, thank you guys.
Thank you for that, Dylan. Yeah. That's,
thank you. It is really nice to hear, isn't it? Because do you know what? Sometimes, Reece, I think me and you can fall into a pit of sometimes why are we doing this? And it is nice then when you hear feedback like that from the community. So a big shout out, Dylan. Really appreciate that. Now we're going to leave on that high note. My name's Liam. I am one of the Hostel Brothers here. I am going live in about half an hour. If you aren't sick of me yet, I will be covering Rocket Lab Daily with my good old friend Chris. Guys, this has been great fun. We have Reece on the left hand side, DOG, my partner in crime. We have Dylan down the bottom, great addition to the team.
And I have a quick question for the community. I'm so sorry, Liam. Quick question for the community for when you guys come back on this weekend. I'd love to throw the question to the community. If you had $2 billion and you were running an eVTOL company, what would you do with it? So maybe you guys can bring back some answers and the community can jump in and we can really have some fun with the chat and see what everybody in the community would do if they had $2 billion and had an eVTOL company to run. So sorry to cut you off, Liam, but maybe we could, get some community to think about that and come back to us with their thoughts come this weekend.
I wrote that down. We're going to definitely discuss that. eVTOL Fan Club starts with the $2 billion question.
Love it.
Guys, make sure to check that out on this Sunday. It'll be around 5 p.m. Eastern time. Guys, thank you so much for coming. Until Sunday. Well, no, do you know what? Until half an hour, you'll meet me there. We'll see you then.